Hello and welcome to yet another session at the Gosu Academy here. Today, what we're going to be talking about is something it's not big enough to be a session on its own, so it's kind of like a bonus, let's call it. We'll talk about how the sort of fight or flight response directly relates to Counter-Strike and how that can actually show up in your game and kind of what you can do to change it, or at least why that's important, I guess, in general. On top of that, I want to watch a demo today. I've told the students here at the academy that I didn't want to tell them what we're going to be doing, and it's because I want to watch a specific demo, but I don't want them to know which one yet. So we'll get into that very soon. I want to just directly jump into this morning. I did a coaching session with a Bulgarian guy, and what I noticed was that whenever his team was losing rounds, a lot of the time his answer was to go top mid unders 2 and fight. So even if you had Deagle or even whatever, even if it was an uncomfortable situation to be pushing top mid in, he did it a lot of the time. That didn't have to necessarily be top mid, but either way he was playing very aggressively. And someone once said to me, which is an interesting thought, and I'm not sure if there's truth to it, but my experiences tell me that there is. I guess let me actually skirt around it for a little while longer, but basically I think most people will agree that the different nationalities in Counter-Strike have different special skill sets, let's call it. So obviously I'm from Europe, and describing sort of the EU countries makes the most sense because I've had the most experience playing against them. But for example, with Denmark, where I'm from, it's known to be probably in a way the most try-hard country in Counter-Strike. Super tactical, always good with utility, communicating a bunch, relying a lot on team play and sort of perfect by-the-book Counter-Strike. That's what Denmark is known for, especially because of the Astralis era. But if I were to talk about something like Finland, which is a country that doesn't really have that many top professional teams, but does have a lot of top professional players, and also sort of historically, they are typically known to be, just as Finnish people are known to be outside of Counter-Strike, pretty sort of calm and quiet and stuff like that. And what that gives them is, if they are kind of calm and quiet, it means they are probably pretty good under pressure, because where Danish players sometimes falter is when the pressure gets to them. If their biggest sort of weapon in their arsenal is good communication, they will end up communicating sometimes too much, or you can feel that the communication gets more stressful, or somehow affected by the pressure. And every time they open their mouths, you will be reminded that they are nervous or feeling the pressure. Playing with Finnish players, because I've done this, I've played with Sergey, who's one of the greatest CSGO Finnish players ever, and yeah, he probably would have been in CS2 if he continued. Always super calm guy, good under pressure and stuff like this. And what they're also sort of known for, at least in my book, is extremely good mechanics. Like, most of the Finnish players play pretty high sensitivity, and their mechanics are squeaky clean. Like, you won't see almost any error in their aim. Why is that? It's because when you can't rely on communication for you to win games, you start sort of excelling at other things, and if you don't make it to the pro circuit. If we go to, North America, probably one of the biggest things I would use to describe American players is almost like arrogance or ego. That sounds kind of negative, but it can obviously be a good thing, like having sort of an unending confidence in your own abilities is extremely valuable for your own self, but obviously can be destructive to teams. Basically, everything that is a strength is also at times a weakness. For the Danish players, stress communication. It's clear when you hear them talk, maybe that their communication, their communication reflects the fact that they are feeling under pressure. With Finnish players, if they are too calm and quiet, it can mean that when they get pressured, they get more quiet, and the mechanics will probably still look great, but they will sort of benefit the team play less. And for American players, having like ego or like a lot of confidence is good, but it can also, if you start taking like being toxic towards your teammates, or in general, sort of, if that creates drama that everyone wants to be the star and stuff like that, that can quickly become a negative. And I could go on and on. Every scene has sort of their own local specialty. Just like if we talk about football, for you Americans, soccer, like the Brazilians are known to be extremely technically gifted, and Germans are known to be super well-rounded, let's say, and Italians are known for the defending, and so on and so on. This was sort of a long intro, but the reason why it's important is because I heard from a guy from one of the Balkan countries in EU, so one of the Eastern European countries, that he had a theory. A big part of the reason why someone like Nico thrives under pressure is because growing up in Bosnia, obviously I'm not a historian or anything like this, but I believe as he was growing up, or maybe slightly before he was born, there was a civil war or something like this. Either way, growing up in Eastern Europe is in some cases, resulting in growing up in not necessarily poverty, but at least compared to, for example, Denmark or Germany or these kind of countries, you typically grow up having less, and maybe for that reason wanting more. The reason I'm bringing this up is because basically all Bulgarian players that I've played with, and the guy I had the metafight session with today was Bulgarian, that's why I'm specifically singling them out, have had a completely iron mind. Like Poison, for example, who I played with for about a week, 2 weeks in Complexity when I was standing in there. He would never play deathmatch. He literally warmed up with a mobile game which was like Cookie Clicker, like something where you just click your mouse and AFK and you get money or something like this, like not actual money but in-game currency, right? And then he would go into matches in Pro League and just destroy everybody. This sort of ability to be so mentally strong, or I would maybe even say mentally resilient, is something that I think does have something to do with where you grow up. I think that's also why we do see, I mean, if we again were to point a negative finger towards Denmark, which is one of the most successful countries of all time in Counter-Strike as a whole, Danish players have been known to choke. Like before Astralis became the the greatest team of all time, they were TSM and they were losing many matches, always getting second, even if they were like poised for the victory. And you see it as well somewhat with Stavn and Yabi. They now got bought to Astralis, and they haven't really been able to prove yet that they were worth the investment. So I talked to the guy who I did a individual coaching session with earlier today, and I asked him his opinion as well. If he thinks part of the reason why a lot of Bulgarian players are aggressive in their playstyle is because in the Eastern European countries, there is sort of a there's at least a much bigger focus on being a badass and being a man and not showing emotions. And he did agree with me. And that's sort of, again, the long intro we have towards the subject of fight or flight and how that sort of impacts you in Counter-Strike. So if you don't know what fight or flight basically is about, is if there's a confrontation on the street, for example, you start arguing with someone, for probably majority of Danish people, in this case, I'll use my own country as an example, we will either try to resolve the conflict, or if we can see that it can't be resolved, we will leave. So we are more prone to flight. Like, we want to get out of the situation if it starts getting dicey. Whereas I think, the Eastern European countries have more the mindset of, if there's a confrontation, we can't solve it, whoever leaves first is a pussy. I guess I can use it in so direct terms. And again, the student that I talked to, he agreed. How does this impact you in Counter-Strike? Well, I think it impacts you in the sense that if we, for the case of this analogy, say that Counter-Strike is a confrontation, right? Or let's just say fight or flight is sort of a natural response. And it is what happens when we come out of our comfort zone. Like, if you're getting robbed, some people might try to run away, and some people might try to do something, or that's basically the idea. And in Counter-Strike, how that sort of gets expressed is this guy who I was coaching today, Skinny is his name, he was very keen on taking the fight to the opponents in the moments when he was experiencing, like losing rounds and being out of his comfort zone and so on and so forth. Whereas I know for myself, when I was a professional player, one of my biggest issues was always when I got out of my comfort zone, I would become naturally more passive. And even though I hate thinking in black and white, a lot of players can be pretty clearly black and white when it comes to performing under pressure. Some players are naturally aggressive, and let's take someone like Simple. If his team is losing big, what he will do is he will try to take the fight to the opponents and see if he can win the game on his own. Whereas Brokey, who is known for being a really passive orb, sometimes in the big moments is when he sort of goes missing, because if he is not having the day, he will tend to just remove himself from the action more than insert himself into the action. And the reason why this is important to think about is because while obviously different teams need different profiles, and while I would say there is never something in Counter-Strike or in sports in general where one thing is inarguably better than the other. If you are an aspiring young player and you're trying to go pro, I can't tell you the amount of times that I've heard the words, it's easier to sort of control an aggressive player than forcing a passive player to start doing things on their own. It's easier to sort of put a leash on an aggressive demon who just wants to peek everybody than it is to force someone who doesn't want to peek to peek. And so, again, if you are an aspiring young player and you want to get better and you want to potentially become a professional player, catching this sort of fight or flight response early is one of the best ways you can actually make yourself attractive to teams if you have the skill set to back it up. So, like, I think also the fight or flight response is something that comes with age. for sure, if there was a confrontation where someone would want to fight me out in the streets, and this would be happening when I was 18, I would be doing everything I could to avoid it. Now I'm 28. I'm still not much of a fighter, but if worst comes to worst, and it would be a necessity, I think I would be less afraid. The problem is that for a lot of Counter-Strike players, aging is a negative. Everyone wants the young talents, and everyone's career has an end station, right? So if you're a young player and you want to become the best version of yourself, trying to force yourself to play more aggressively when you feel uncomfortable is a lot of the times a really good investment of your time. And it doesn't necessarily have to be something that matters. It's normally pretty difficult to get out of your comfort zone by playing something that doesn't matter, right? But say you are just a face-it grinder and you also play ESEA, like something on the side. You don't have to, at the beginning, force yourself to be extra aggressive when it's a league match where, there are extra eyes on you. But if you play a face-it match and you all of a sudden, like today I played against Get Right, Forest, and Freiburg. For a lot of players who are not used to playing those type of players, they might get extra nervous, and also knowing that they're streaming for thousands of viewers, it does make a difference, right? And even though the result in that particular phase, it doesn't really matter, it might put you out of your comfort zone, it might make you second guess yourself, and it might be a situation where you go in fight or flight mode. And when that happens, try to recognize it and see if you can force yourself to, instead of hiding behind grenades and doing your best to not make mistakes, instead try to play aggressively and see if you can actively change the outcome. If you look at who is some of the biggest rifling talents today, almost all of them are more aggressively natured. And it's because when you are a young talent, if you are a good player and you're also aggressive, it's more easy to shape you into a world beater, someone who has massive impact and can take over games, rather than someone who, when the going gets tough, tries his best to not be the reason you lose. Does that make sense? Okay, I think everyone fell asleep. Okay. Yeah. Okay. That's great. Great to hear. That was basically the first part of the session. A lot of yapping, I'm sure. But I do think it's actually a interesting topic that I haven't ever heard anybody talk about on YouTube. So I thought I'd be the first. Going into sort of the second section of the video, I want to watch a demo, but you guys have to help me pick. Someone say a map. Okay. So I will now, instead of streaming, actually I wasn't even streaming Counter-Strike in the first place, which is stupid. I am now streaming for you Skybox, which we have done a session with before. And I want on purpose to be watching a player who I haven't been watching before. So on Skybox, they have this thing called leaderboards, where you can pick the map and you can also pick the side. So for example, if I pick CT, Yekindar is the highest rated player with the filters that I've set. But on T side, it might be someone else. It's hyped. And then if you could take both into consideration, it's max. And actually, it probably is max either way, but it's just because he doesn't have enough rounds. So 16 rounds, for example, is pretty low. Let's put this, since Ancient is a pretty heavily played map, to something like 30 to 35. And now we get a picture. Ideally, we would like to find someone with a lot of rounds played, or at least enough that they are, doing good. Now, we could watch Hyped, but I think for the sake of the video, I don't really want to watch an AWP player. And I think a player that could be really interesting to watch is this Teneri, or how you even say his name, I actually don't know. Tenir? I don't know. Either way, this is not normally a player that I would watch, because he just isn't really that high up on my radar. If I'm looking, let's say, to find out how to play A-Lurk better as T-side, I would likely go to Robs or Bit instead of this guy. And that's the whole point. So let me go on HLTV and let's find this guy's best match on Ancient. And we will see, like, from recent times, right? Ideally from the Blast tournament, where he's been, I think, performing pretty well. Heroic 3D Max 1614 is probably not a bad map to watch. We might need to skip around a little bit in this demo, just because like a decent chunk of the session has already gone with all the other yapping. But while I do this, I will just show my game and not stream my screen in case I have to go into my files and stuff. I am definitely the type who could end up showing something I shouldn't, and I just want to make sure I don't. But yeah, would you guys ever, no offense to this guy obviously, but watch this guy's demos? Have you ever watched a demo from this guy? No. Okay, yeah, I thought that would be the case. Yeah, since some people don't know him, I don't know him that well either. But what I do know is he was playing for Gun 5, and he was... yes. Thank you for reminding me. What I do know is he was playing for Gun 5, and he had like insane stats, like 1.35 or something like that. Heroic needed someone because I guess Nilo had something that prevented him from playing, and Heroic needed like a banger stand-in, so they got this guy. Apparently he's one of the highest rated Ancient players with the filters that we picked, which was like against top 30 in the world. And it's not normally a guy I would watch. So, also, a fun fact about this guy, because I have done a little bit of research on him, I do it about basically all players, is that he actually plays one of the lowest sensitivities in professional Counter-Strike. At least according to the interwebs, his sensitivity is 0.5 on 800, so it's extremely low. And I'm just saying that at the beginning so that you guys can keep an eye out for it, because it is possible to see it sometimes when he's holding down bomb sites, how clean his micro movements are. Like his sprays are very tight because, yeah, his sensitivity is so low, and he is very just precise. So I hope you will see that from this demo as well. This was, I believe, a match played online in the Blast Bounty Season 1 thing. But it is definitely the biggest sort of stage he's ever played on. Like, playing for Heroic is not easy. And crazy that he got 33 kills. Since they don't have a team? Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I guess they do have a team now, right? Like, they have this team. But yeah, it's kind of like a weird situation for Heroic right now. I do agree. So, yeah, I wonder if he's actually going to play as A-Lurk, or if his role is different in Heroic than it was in Gun 5. If it is, that's at least even more impressive, if he changed his roles and then also had such a performance. But yeah, so far, obviously, he had a great pistol round. He got 3 kills, and he did the job. His job was basically to fake that they were going out A main, and then his teammates used this to take mid control. So yeah, I think he's actually going to die at the start of the next round, I guess. I think maybe... Yeah, I will skip a little bit to see... I mean, he's going to die, we can see here at the bottom. How does he die here, actually? Does he die to gravity with 1 HP? He actually does. That's crazy. I think, since we don't have as much time as we would have probably liked, let's skip a little bit to when he starts popping off. And that should be now. And see what we can learn from this guy, because always when there's a new player at, you know, like a new player entering the scene, sometimes they have some small tricks that no one else really knows. That's at least how it used to be, but now with the times of Nard out here and stuff like that, it's much more difficult to keep things under lock and key. Since we talked about the fight or flight response, also some added context. This guy is from Belarus, which is also very much, you know, Eastern Europe. And I do think already you can tell that he is not shying away from a fight. Like here, after getting the kill on gravity, where, you know, the smoke gets popped and he gets blind, he gets the kill on him. He could have, you know, fight or flight, gone behind the smoke and been chilling. Instead, he pushes in front because he wants to be the one taking the fight to them. And he gets from that another kill. But then it also kind of gets him killed, so. But nice to see. So far, sharp mechanics and like good active decision making. And this is exactly what, I mean, it's very relevant for this whole session, actually. Because this is very much, I would imagine, outside his comfort zone. It's the first time he's playing for a team of this caliber. And yeah, I think this guy was not really on anyone's radar. I think he got this opportunity because his stats in the last 3 months were outrageous. But I can't imagine that these players play a lot of Face-It with him and stuff like that. And it's probably just a pickup from stats, let's call it. Nothing wrong with that, though. I got picked up by having similar stats as to him when I got into my first pro team, so there is something to it. This is a pretty tough nut to crack. Like, his teammate has made it out A in tempo, and here is maybe where he makes a bit of a mistake. As he's taking the bomb and going back towards A main, he makes steps towards A. This might lead the CTs to have a feeling that someone is out and have locked the site. And I mean, that is indeed the case. LNC does get a kill and then even flashes for his teammate. But this is a tough plant. He does get the plant though. It's honestly a winnable situation if he hits some good shots. He does hit a good shot. Also, always something that's interesting to look at is when a player is, you know, playing at a higher level than what they're used to. When people come out of their comfort zone, at least a natural response for me is that my aim gets a little more shaky than normal, and it takes me a little bit of time to sort of get into the groove of that. I don't see any shakiness from his aim. But his sensitivity is also so low that it's almost impossible to have shaky aim. But again, super good, just doing his job, like nothing super special. But that's also always interesting to me, is that this guy is going to end up with 33 kills. And so far, he has just been doing what I would be expecting of a player of this caliber. He hasn't done anything extra. Maybe we'll see that in the latter half of this. There was a little bit of shake here, actually, when he was peeking. This could be nerves. Look, when he peeks this, there's a little bit of shake. But yeah, just a tiny amount. But at the same time, with his sensitivity, that is a lot. He is probably very tense at this moment. And that is completely normal. So here again, he is sort of the front man in a lot of these pushes. He gets a good kill. They try to bait Lucky to peek. And also, I mean, just good awareness here. He's letting Youngster hold the angle while he is mostly covered. Like, if someone would swing wide in cave, they basically can't kill him. But he still stands in a position where he is able to hold heaven info. I didn't know this was actually possible. It's a pretty interesting setup they got going on here. And that is definitely something I've learned already from watching this demo. It is possible to have a sort of anti-reaggression setup where you hold each other like that, and you're able to swing on each other. So that's quite neat. That might be something I'm taking to my team as well. So now it's another tough situation, and you see how crazy he actually is here. He just runs through the Molotov, flashes for his teammate, gets the kill. Now though they need the bomb. And yeah, this might be too tall of an order. One thing I also do like from him so far is his... when I look at people peeking, I see a difference between people just peeking an angle randomly or peeking with intent to kill. And typically you only really peek the angles where you think someone can be at with intent to kill. What's the difference? It's just something about how people use their movements, how quickly they stop and how clean their crosshair placement is and how so on and so on. But this guy, his mechanics look really, really awesome. And that is what you get when you like pick up a player who has like 1.35 past 3 months. They will, no matter what, be good mechanically. And also, because they have so much confidence from the sort of lower leagues where they've overperformed for a long time, it typically carries over when they join a new team for at least like a month. But as soon as the going gets tough, then you know, and your stats start going down, you typically lose some confidence, and some players never find that back. Morps from G2 is probably the best example of someone who came in with 1.35, changed his roles, and it didn't phase him at all. He's still just insane. But yeah. Who knows if this guy is the next one? Morps is also a really, really low sense player. Yeah, super good. You see the intent to kill as well. Like he crouches and peeks him at the right time and stuff. And he's also good at being aggressive enough to find the kills, but slowing it down after the kills as to not give up a free trade. Here, I think is a situation where if he was playing for Gun 5 and not Heroic, I think he might have dared to go through the smoke. It felt like this was him feeling like he had a timing that he wanted to take, but he chose not to. And yeah, he would have actually had an amazing timing. So this was maybe the first indicator that we all have a bit of flight in us. But yeah, still, just good job by him. He got a good kill, and now he's just being chilling here. Now as his teammates are coming over, he needs to peek on the right timing. I think he misses it a little. And yeah, misses the spray as well. So his mechanics do let him down a little bit here. But yeah. Just to talk about like why he misses the timing a little is that he wants to be here in A main. And as his teammates are running out of donut, if someone peeks CT, he should ideally be able to trade. But he doesn't know if someone is in this space. You can see, like, when he goes out now, his first team is already dead, and he is late. And then he just has no other option than to go for a raw aim duel. Yeah, I think since we don't have all that much time, let's skip the the eco rounds from him, because we also have an overtime match on our hands. I'm curious, like for the other people who are here, how do you like when you watch this guy? Let's say you didn't know who was playing here. What would you give him as a rating from what we've seen so far? Yeah. Yeah. So he's been good when he has sort of been called upon, right? Like overall, I think I'm impressed. It's not that he's done something crazy, but his base level looks high, right? I guess that's what we can assume from this. Um, we don't know if this is his top level or his bottom level, but it's probably somewhere in between, and it looks good. Also, like here, the spacing to the teammate looks good. That is good. Yeah, and actually a pretty unnecessary duel for him to take. Um, that can be good and bad. You know, if there's an unnecessary duel for you to take and you take it anyway, it's again sort of the fight or flight response, right? Um, I'm trying to apply it as much as I can today, but it means that he's not satisfied with just having 9 kills and 7 deaths, even though he is playing at the biggest stage he's ever played, even though it's online, right? And yeah, here, I think if he didn't catch that flash, he could have probably multi-killed. Like, a lot of the times, if you have low sensitivity, your pistol aim is very good. Pistoling is, like, pistol rounds is a lot about tracking, and low sensitivity players are typically very good at tracking. Because the low sensitivity allows you to track more easily. Like, it's hard to mess up in your tracking. Unless they, like, wide swing right in front of you, then it's very hard. This is also something I think is like a clue for how comfortable he is. This, like playing a deagle in Donut is not amazing. You have to be really a confident aimer for that to work for you. And the fact that he is having that is a good sign, again, I think. Now 3v3, he knows Maka is lurking mid. He's got him boxed in. The low sensitivity might come into play. And yeah, I mean, kind of misses the opportunity, but at the same time, this is also one of the good indicators. Nice. So the fact that he sort of let Maka peek without shooting is an indicator that he is pretty calm at this moment. Like, it's natural that when your blood is pumping and you got max adrenaline and stuff like that, that you will shoot more quickly than maybe what is necessary. And here it was the exact opposite. Like, he really took his time. And this, yeah, it isn't anything super special. Like, he just uses flashes. The flash lineups aren't like crazy or something. That is one thing I would say I haven't seen from him yet. He has almost not thrown any utility whatsoever. And that is also sometimes the case, especially when you have a high output rifle player. Like, you won't see Donk throw an insane utility set to execute in and destroy everybody. That's just unlikely, because you want your best aimer to be focused on aiming. I remember when I became stand-in, again in Complexity, for Config, who was a top 5 mechanical player, I think I could easily say at that moment. And I was, assuredly not that. I think, like, when I joined the team, just as a stand-in, of course, Blame F, just one of the first things he told me was, yeah, you have to adapt to these roles. but you don't have to worry on T side because you're basically not throwing any utility. Like, they had just sort of tailor-made the T side gameplay for him to just run around and kill people. And yeah, that could very well be the same case for this guy. Ooh, here there is a little bit, like, here he is shying away from a fight a little bit. I think it's because he's worried he's going to be attacked from both sides. But this was a fight he could have had. I think it's the flashbang that pops in mid that makes him really afraid that they're also scaling out mid at the same time. And instead he decides to like give up the duel. Because if he would have, if they would have flashed through and come out through the mid smoke as well, he has to get away to survive. So yeah. Also another thing, this is like kind of a low sense advantage in a way, but you don't necessarily need to reload your weapon and have maximum bullets always, because you can do a lot with very few bullets. Whereas if you are a high sensitivity player, you are probably more likely to miss from time to time. Like typically your accuracy goes down, even though your time to kill might stay the same. But yeah, not a whole lot. He's gonna have a few rough rounds by the looks of it. He buys Deagle here again. I think actually let's just skip this where he doesn't get any kills. Let's just see maybe how he dies here if I can catch it. Oh, I couldn't. So this was actually a buy round. Let's actually go back and just check what happened here. Because he was going cave. He messed up his nade, which actually makes a difference. This nade is really key for multiple reasons. I've talked about it in previous sessions, but if you nade here, obviously it does damage to the T's, that's normal. But to win the cave area, it's so much about who has the better timing. And the nade, what it actually does more importantly than damaging, is it slows down the opposition. The fact that he messed up the nade here means he kind of gets caught off guard. And that ultimately leads to his demise. But his team still wins the round though. So that's great. Great stuff from them. And let's see. What is he up to now? 12 kills only. 18 rounds in. It's not bad. He's not looking too fancy on the score, but especially Sumpayus is not. So here you see the nade comes out. Very, very key grenade. And he is playing B-side as CT. So this is not, I would say, one of the most impactful roles on average. But it's one of the roles where if you're really good at playing B, when your B side gets hit, you can have massive impact. And it sounds like something that would be the case for basically anywhere, but I do think like the A player on Ancient, for example, the impact comes from taking gambles about when to be where. For a B player, it's all about like raw impact. I'm gonna slow this down real quick because this is a great example of like his low sensitivity coming in handy. So he doesn't know that this swing is coming at this moment. But watch how good his tracking is, even though this guy is sort of getting the jump on him. He's moving forward, and look, immediately, like in the head, and he's also ready for the follow-up, which doesn't come. Now, they can clear out mid, sort of, or at least clear out red room, and then they can instead go and focus on B. Somehow he stays alive here. That's crazy. And yeah, I think he just goes to save because I see a big gap down here. But I think this is definitely the right decision. A very common rule is that when T's get the B bomb site and they also own the backline, like they did here basically, they were long and they were peeking towards CT, that's time to save. Or you have to retake from heaven, which in this case was not possible at all. So this looks like kind of a bait setup. He went there and spammed the smoke just so that they maybe don't expect liners. And yeah, well they did. They did expect him. I think the bait was a little bad as well. But yeah. And yeah, again, this Red Room fight comes in, and again he wins it, actually. And this was, you know, the mouse movements were less clean, but they were still quick. That's all that matters. And yeah. He is very willing also to take, like, commit to spray duels. Like, he is good at finding the timings to get one-on-one duels, and he really commits to them as well. There are certain players, I mean, I brought up Nico earlier in the session, you know, famous for one-tapping a lot, and that's also some benefit you get when you play low sensitivity a lot of the time is, as I said, your accuracy is normally increased with lower sensitivity. Your time to kill might not be that much higher, or sorry, lower, or like better, let's say it like that, than high sense players, but your accuracy is typically higher. It just might take you longer to adjust if someone is not in your point of view. Here is a big round out of Bro. It's a 12-8. He is down. Not one, but two men. And they've got their backs to the wall. They need someone to step up now and be a hero. And actually, is it going to be... Oh, actually, LNZ gets 2 kills. He's going to finish it off then. So he pushes in. Again, strong in the duel. You see here, like, this is... Yeah. This is also really where your... Like, the low sensitivity comes in handy. Because he likes to play sort of tight lines like this, I notice, with his aim. Like, really tight lines where you need very precise aim to win. And that matters because other players who are undoubtedly playing higher sensitivity, he must have one of the lowest sensitivities of all time. He might be like top 10 lowest sensitivities of all time in CSGO and CS2. Yeah, exactly, 400 EDPI, yeah. It's very low. Yeah. What? 0? Okay. I mean, you could try. I'm not sure it'll work. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you can plant the bomb still. That's all that matters. That's the objective of the game. But yeah, like 400 EDPI is scary low. Like, there hasn't been many players with lower. I think, like, yeah, Waylander and, let me see, Mihu. Those are like... Yeah, I think so. And, I mean, there are a few players who are down in those depths of the EDPI, but there aren't many. But I just noticed that it feels like he specifically searches these duels out, because I have watched like a little bit of his play on Anubis. It wasn't a demo, it was just like a live match, and I noticed that he does take tight lines, and then when I looked up his, you know, sensitivity, it started making sense. Like, his aim is disgustingly clean, but you see it here, like, when you have such a tight angle, his spray is so tight. Like, there is almost no bullet that doesn't go exactly where he wants it to. And that's the advantage of playing low sense. But he has, like, you know, he uses and abuses that by playing really tight lines sometimes. So this is actually super smart. Because I think the average sensitivity has gone up slightly in CS2 because heads are, like, I think on average 8% bigger or something like this. And before as well, like, the average EDPI was 880. So this guy is less than half of the average pro player's EDPI. I think even that doesn't include AWPers, maybe. Like, if you include AWPers in that like EDPI average, it's like the average is even higher. Like, but this is great. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, yeah. And Olaf Meister especially. Yeah. Yeah. That's true. Also, like, for the longest time... Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Sorry, I thought you were done. But you can keep saying. Okay. Well, yeah, no, actually, I completely agree with that. that is a trend we're seeing, and that's normal as well. All of the CIS opers like Deco, Rinko, Wonderful, like all of these big talent CIS opers were all playing 1.5 at 800, like, or 3.09 at 400 or whatever. Like basically, like the simple sense, right? And now people are trending towards the dunk sense. I completely agree with you. Like even someone like Rinko, he has gone down in sense from what I know to like 1.3 at 800. So yeah, I completely agree with that. Interesting as well here, like he tries to spam the plant because he probably knows this guy is low, and then what he does is he tucks in, waits for his teammate to come close, and then plays. And this is, yeah, a small detail, but it's really smart. Like it does take balls, massive balls, when you are almost at the brink of throwing the map here to sort of play aggressive and spam the plant there, when this isn't even really your team. So, yeah. It's really cool. And then the fact that he, did that, but then also managed to stay alive and sort of tuck in and wait for his teammate, it's, yeah, amazing. What, sorry? On what? Oh, on loan. Yeah, he's a stand-in because I guess they wanted, like, they got Nilo and Madden benched, basically. And Nilo, it's for some personal reasons that hasn't been disclosed. And yeah, I don't know, Madden, there were sort of talks about probably he would replace someone from Sangal as soon as they have, used them up for points, let's say. But yeah, he was, I guess, planning to play at the LAN, and then he couldn't get a visa, and then he did get a visa, so now he's actually, I think he played today at the LAN, but I think they lost to Spirit, right? Yeah, I do believe they did, yeah. This is also just a small detail about, 3D Max do B execute with long and short smoke, and he has his smoke saved until late, and he uses this on ramp. This is like super good block just from like a utility standpoint. He only got the one kill, but LNZ steps up here. So that's cool. He also had some big moments in this match so far, actually. But he's still quite far away from 33 kills, I have to say. And now, for some reason, he ends up playing A. Might be something spawn-based. Oh god, now his teammates just get entry'd again. And he is kind of left to be the one saving the day again. Whoa, what a cool flash, but that definitely was not on purpose. And now, yeah, that would be a really cool flash, but yeah. And also, I mean, good job here. He gets one kill in mid, which stops them from going A fast. And then he goes over and shows presence like, hey, A is not for free. And then they insta-rotate to stack B. This might not be his call. Probably it isn't, to be honest. But still, it seems to be, well, it looked to be a good decision, but actually 3D Max are smarter. Sorry for coughing a little bit. This is again like a super, super tough round. Don't manage to clear out the guy in mid, but now LNZ again with another really important impact kill. And yeah, I guess he's a little lucky that Gravity doesn't have more than a pistol. Now LNZ is doing a lot of pressure from Donut. Guy has to move. Still, cutting it a little close. But yeah, gets the defuse in at the end. And yeah, in these hectic situations as well, what can happen a lot when you are like, I wouldn't say he's a young player, but he's new at this level, is that especially in the late round scenarios, it's easy to make mistakes. Like do something stupid because you're stressed. And I haven't seen any of that from him. So that's amazing. In fact, it's incredible. And I do think like, yeah, no offense, like that is nasty what he just did there. No offense to my birthplace, but I think a lot of Danish players, if they would have come into like a top team, coming off of having good stats in sort of their local scene or whatever, it's unlikely they would come in and take over the game like this. Like, it is, I think, this iron mind, let's call it. Like, the Eastern European players, they are so strong mentally. It's crazy. Like, it's really hard to break them. And under pressure and stuff like that, it's, yeah. They eat the pressure. It's crazy. And it seems to be the same for this guy. He's at least, in my opinion, I'm super impressed. You know, I expected that in a map where he's getting 33 kills. We on purpose picked out probably his best map, let's say, of all time. But still, I'm impressed. And that's what matters. Okay, guys, couple of rounds left. He's still got a lot of kills to have. I don't know how he's going to do this, actually. He's got 21 by now, and there's how many rounds left? There's 6 rounds left. So he's gonna average 2 kills per round now in the overtime. That's actually ridiculous. That is actually absurd. So yeah, he's late to the take again. Not of his own doing, but just because he is a B player. And a great piece of utility. Like, it did give his teammates some leeway in the duel there. And now again, a really tough late round scenario. But yeah, I kind of want to see this from Maka's point of view. Also, one of the benefits of having low sensitivity, when you peek, if you pre-aim correctly, it's so not easy necessarily, but it's possible to. I'm not sure I understand. Oh, my watch is saying hello. But it's somewhat easy to win this duel, and I'm curious here. xCloud must have made noise, right? Like, why is this guy turning around now? Okay. Yeah, I guess maybe Lucky is walling. It's actually crazy. But what it comes down to here, and this is also, like, this might, on the surface, look like just, oh, he peeked and he killed. But what it is, these kind of peaks are actually some of the most important peaks in Counter-Strike. I want to say right now, it's always been, but I don't know. I've started really to think a lot about this. I do this a lot in Faceit. The reason why this peak is so good is because if he wins the duel, great. If he loses the duel, his teammate will always be close enough to trade him. Like, there is almost no scenario here where Bro peaks, dies, and Lucky spins around 180 and immediately kills xCloud before he can trade. Like, for Lucky to win that duel and be so exposed out in the open, he has to, like, one of the CT players will win that duel. And because they have man advantage, that means winning the round, so that's worth it. For sure. Yeah, we saw some of why it isn't always fun to be a B player. He peaked even with the flash and everything, but you kind of have to jump information as B player, so you don't get contacted on. But sometimes you can die to an op. That's that. This is also quite cool. They decide to like super stack mid, and yeah, this is just a shooting gallery for a low sense demon like this. And yeah, super impressive. Good gamble as well. I don't think he called it himself again. You might call me like cynical, but just from how the round looked, it looked more like it was pre-planned. That someone in spawn had said, okay, how about we block B at the start and we leave and fight mid. Maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong. But those kind of decisions are also extremely difficult to make when you are a stand-in, I have to say. And here, super quick, very willing to take duels, wins the opening duel, just keeps running in, no holds barred, instantly owns Maka. I saw this actually. Now he goes in and just keeps peeking. It's ridiculous. But yeah, if there ever was a round to prove the like the Eastern European fight or flight theory, then this would be it. And you know, I call it the Eastern European fight or flight. Honestly, what it is just it's not specific to Europe, of course. It's just I'm sure there are like what would you call it, war-ridden, poverty-stricken South American countries as well, or even places in America where this kind of hardened mind is just something that is natural to develop, because you have to survive. It sounds kind of crazy, but that is how it is in some cases. That's actually crazy. Yeah. And now he is going to die, so we'll just skip ahead a little bit. And we'll watch the final round and see, can he continue his massive impact? Now he is at 31 kills. Yeah, I mean, yeah, we know the answer to that. But we'll see if it is actually really impactful kills or if it's just like cleanup kills, you know. Okay, great. I'm very excited now. So yeah, last round of the game. We know it. Oh yeah, 2v3. Yeah, there's really something special. It's only specific low sensitivity players, I feel, that can do that. Like it's him and Malps and yeah, another great kill, and he closes the game. Funny actually that we ended up on a demo which was very relatable to the topic I discussed at the beginning of the session. And I hope you guys learned something. Like for me personally, I can at least say, just to give a small reminder for the people in the back, one thing I at least learned from this, I didn't learn a whole lot of crazy utility or anything like that, but what I did learn a little bit is that if you want a sort of anti-reaggression setup, like this is actually an interesting approach where, you know, you have one who's holding sort of tight line here, but mostly hidden from heaven. So if someone comes out, they will maybe see his arm, right? And then having someone standing like this and holding heaven. So if this guy wants to peek the tight line, you kill. And this guy is holding a tight line, so if the CT overswings, this guy swings and you double peek. That is actually, I think, a really, really good anti-reaggression setup. And crazily enough, I don't think this was pre-planned. Like, I don't think this is something that they have talked about, me personally. I think it's something that they built on the fly. Maybe this guy has held this angle before, or maybe he just used his, his like instinct. But it was very impressive, and it's something I'm definitely gonna bring to my team, because I think, you know, it can be pretty tough sometimes to just hold, but holding is super important. And for you to do that effectively, you need a good setup, and this would be one, because a lot of CTs will get a flash in or will overswing the angle because it's normal to hold this or jiggle this. And yeah, it just allows for such an easy double peek. Like, bro just needs to swing and then bang. The CT can never win that fight. So that's really cool. Yeah, that was, I think, kind of what I had for you guys. Do you guys have anything for me? Do you have any questions for the demo we watched or for what we talked about earlier? Or really just for anything at all? Yeah? Yeah, I recognized by your voice that you joined a little late. So basically just, I won't give you the whole spiel again, of course, because it took like 20 minutes, but I gather you might be Danish from your accent. Is that correct? Potentially, okay. So basically my point was just that, you know, as humans, we have what's called like a fight or flight response. And it is something that's sort of deeply ingrained in us. To take a sort of example, you know, a soldier who is used to doing the flight option probably wouldn't be that great in war. You need someone who is fearless. And that's also part of going through, you know, boot camp and like getting this sort of military mind, and then waking you up at odd hours of the whatever and stuff like that is, you know, you get mentally resilient. That's what the military builds. And for Danish people, we honestly have a pretty carefree existence. Majority of the time, we've got a really good healthcare system, high wages, stuff like this. So we have not had to fight much in our lives. Whereas the theory is That, if you're from an Eastern European country, or you've grown up with not that much money, maybe times were tough at home, you've had to deal with some some scenarios that just don't play out in a very well developed country because you naturally have more. You miss out on having that mental resilience and the hardened mind. Like, on top of that, for a lot of these Eastern European countries and similar countries, is that it's very important to be like a macho man and a badass, and someone who is the biggest and strongest. And showing weakness is weakness, whereas in Denmark, showing weakness can be seen as a strength. And what you get from that is maybe you don't get as many deep thoughts between players, but on the server, when you go out of your comfort zone, those people who are mentally resilient are going to be more likely to have like the fight response, which means under pressure, they keep their aggressiveness up, where Danish players, I think we've seen it a million times, are maybe more prone to choking or playing more passive when they get under pressure. Yep, yep. Yeah. 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 Also pretty built. Yeah. I think Config maybe grew up with hard times. I don't know, but okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. Mm. Yeah, yeah. Um, I guess, but yeah, yeah. No, go ahead. Yeah,
Sometimes even be stronger, right? People who starve, who basically come from countries where they're not getting every meal, then they're less likely to be the ones complaining about, oh, I'm hungry, like, cause,
yeah, yeah,
so.
yeah, yeah. No, that makes sense. That makes sense. Um, yeah, I think the way I see it, and I may be wrong, but like survival instinct is what you have, and fight or flight response is what you do to survive. And people have different ways to do that, basically. Um,
If you mean literally from a biological perspective, fight or flight is a part of the survival instinct.
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. That's how
Um,
I feel.
like your survival instincts is like a broader thing. It's a bit like saying, like, your ability to think is actually a part of your survival instinct to some extent as well, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like, where your brain is programmed is generally like a subconscious level, like survival instincts.
Yeah, yeah.
The same thing, but like I think like if you grew up in Brazil and you grew up in the ghetto of Rio de Janeiro or some shit, obviously you're more tough than someone who grew up in
Yes,
Frederiksberg, Denmark, right? Like
exactly.
um,
And with that, actually, that's what I think is funny about. I mean, I've played with, not Device, but I've played with BlameF and Config for extended periods of time, like in different teams and stuff. And like Config is the most atypical Danish player ever. Like that guy had such mental resilience you will not believe. Like, and yeah, and he was such a unique, like, there is and hasn't been another config in the Danish scene, and that's part of what is coming up in the CIS scene. Why, with CS2 being, I guess, more peaker heavy, that that willingness to fight is really, really important. So yeah, thank you actually for bringing that up, and just for everyone to join the forum, I guess we'll call it. I got a little bit bad news, I'll just tell you before I end the session, but I just realized now that somehow my desktop audio was not working, so I couldn't hear, like, the video won't be able to hear any of you, and we didn't have in-game sound, which sucks. But yeah, it's fixed now. So yeah, I'm sorry, but either way, guys, I think I will end the session now because I need to be up as always on Thursdays and Fridays. I need to be up at 6:20 or something like that tomorrow, so I don't have a whole lot of sleep left, and so I think I'll end it here. But thank you so much for all of you for stopping by, and also for helping me pick out a demo to watch, and also for adding some extra context. I really appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much.
I told you, even though you felt like it wasn't going to be enough, that we just end up talking about so much things that we just end up filling the time.
It's great. Thank you so much for your help as well with coming up with ideas for this session.